All right. Good morning. Thanks, guys, for joining. Hi, I'm Patrick McKittrick, joined by Chris O'Brien, Chief Operating Officer of Full Bay, and our friends from Hendrickson Fire Rescue Equipment. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Look forward to the discussion this morning. Standard disclaimer. So we're going to give a lot of opinions today, talk a lot about our experiences, but this is not full-on advice. We always recommend that you consult with your own professional advisors. With that, Craig and Kevin, welcome. And now I want to turn it over to you guys and get an introduction on Hendrickson and yourselves.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us, guys. So my name is Craig Probst. I'm the president of Hendrickson Enterprises. Hendrickson is made up of a number of different business units. One of our primary business units is we are an emergency response dealer. So that means we sell fire trucks, we sell ambulances, we service fire trucks, we service ambulances, sell parts, equipment, so on and so forth, related to the emergency and the EMS markets. Some of our other business units, we own a company called National Recovery USA. That company is a national recovery and heavy hauling company where we do big recovery jobs across the USA. We operate in all 50 states, and we work for mostly large corporations, auction companies, and insurance companies. And then another piece of the business is we have a local heavy-duty and light-duty transport and towing company. So we move around a lot of heavy equipment in the New York metro market. And then the last piece is we have a commercial service business, right, where we work on commercial trucks, and we're also a Cummins dealer. So that's the quick story about the business. Been in business for 40 years. It was started by my dad and mom about 40 years ago. I took over the leadership spot 8 years ago. That's the quick intro.
My name's Kevin Crump. I come from a manufacturing background, primarily fire trucks and heavy-duty transit buses. Hendrickson and Craig and his family were dealers of ours, fire apparatus dealers, one of our top. We reached a point where Craig extended an invite to come and work with them, which I've been doing for about the past 5 years, full-time for 4 and part-time as a business advisor for the last year. And it's been an absolute pleasure. It's given me a chance to transition from the manufacturing side of fire apparatus, fire trucks, and all that goes into that, and virtually all fire apparatus are sold through a dealer network. To the dealer side, one of our goals all along was dealer development, and how do you help a dealer be the best they can be in order to sell more fire trucks. So this gave me a chance to walk a mile in their shoes and figure out how to do that.
That's great. Really appreciate you guys joining us. Right, we're going to be able to talk about towing, fire, commercial repair, dealerships. The background that you guys have is going to be tremendous. So thanks again for joining.
Thank you.
Before we get off of the slide deck, you were nice enough to send us a cool shot of the shop. So we want everybody to get a look at the shop. Can you just tell us a little bit about the physical shop and the setup and some of the uniqueness that you have there?
Sure, yeah. So our current facility is a 25,000 square foot facility. Sits on about 3 acres. We just purchased the building next to us and expanded our lot by about double. So we struggled a little bit being able to fit more trucks on property, right? Long Island, real estate's really expensive, real estate's tight. So we just purchased the building next door to us. It's double the size of our lot. In that building, we moved a lot of our corporate offices, our administrative offices. And then we also have a vehicle inspection center there where a customer comes in to look at their new truck, goes into that inspection center, really nice epoxy floors, something you would see in a high-end dealership, if you will. The shop itself, we also have a body shop on site. So we have a big 55-foot spray booth. And that's one area of the shop that's kind of walled off. We do a lot of metal fabricating, so we have a metal fabricating shop. And then we have about 16 bays, I guess you will, on site. Right now we're one location in this part of the business. We are currently, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we'll have a deal signed for a second location in the northern part of our territory, which we are going to open another facility in that location. So We are beginning to staff up for that. We already have employees that are working for us from a mobile perspective, and they're, so soon we'll have the second facility up and running.
That's great. So much to get through there. So,
Yes.
Opening up a new facility,
Yes.
hiring.
Yes.
Right? That's got to be, and it's top of mind for everyone still. Any thoughts on strategies that you're going to use to hire, as you're not trying to hire one or two technicians, you've got to staff an entirely new location.
Yeah, so we're kind of employing in the second facility a lot of the things that have worked for us in our current location, right? So when we think about, in the last number of years, we've been pretty successful with attracting new technicians, young technicians, to come work for us. We had a lot of technicians that were with the company a really long time, 30 years, 40 years, and they retired. So we were kind of at a spot a number of years ago, we needed to replace them. And we've been successful with replacing them. And how we've done it is, you got to create a business that is attracting, right? So first off, the equipment we work on is attracting. Fire trucks, they're shiny, they're really complex pieces of equipment. So that lends itself to really attracting people. People want to work on them. They're life-saving pieces of equipment. So that helps. Number two is we've really invested a lot in our facilities. I mean, we've spent multi-million dollars into really upgrading our facilities to making it a real attractive place. So that's helped. And we are putting that same philosophy into the new location, right? Spent a lot of time really looking for the right location, and this new location is going to look and feel like our current location. A lot of lighting, a lot of polished concrete floors, things like that.
Now, you also invest in the technicians where you're a Cummins certified dealer, right? So you're getting certifications for techs and actually investing in them and growing them as individuals with full portable certifications beyond your repair facility.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and that's really helped us attract technicians. It took a lot of work, but about 5 years ago, it was about a 3-year process to become a Cummins dealer. It took a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of meeting certain requirements, and then we were able to become a Cummins dealer, and that's really helped us attract technicians. Technicians have been wanting to come on board. They've been wanting to go through the Cummins track. Cummins provides a lot of great training, both online and in person, and that's really helped us attract people.
When you're hiring, do you go out and specifically find folks who have worked on fire equipment before? Or do you say, hey, 60, 70% of the unit's going to be the same as a diesel truck anyway, we'll train them on the rest? What's your philosophy there?
Yeah, so we've had a little bit of both, right? So we've been successful at taking fire techs from our competitors that have decided to make a career change, and that they've come on board with us, and it's gone well. But we've also been real successful at taking some top diesel techs in our market, and we've said, come on to Hendrickson, we'll teach you the fire side. If you already know the truck side, to your point, 70% of the vehicle is the same. So we'll teach you the systems on a fire truck. We'll teach you about aerials. We'll teach you about pumps. We'll teach you about the electrical systems found on the fire trucks. We'll teach you about the hydraulic generators. We'll teach you the lingo, if you will. There's a lot of lingo that you need to know working on a fire truck. When someone says a cross lay, well, what does that mean, right? They need to know that. So we've been real successful at teaching good diesel techs the fire side.
That's interesting. Just sticking on the fire side for a little while. There's a lot of people, I think, these days who are thinking about, I'm in one single line of business. Should I or can I expand to another line of business? There might be some people getting into fire. We had a few questions before the webinar about any tips or tricks for how do I break in to a fire department and actually start selling to them?
Sure. I guess if we had to do it over, what I would do is there's actually a lot of fire truck dealers out there. There's a number of different companies, and some of these dealers have very large territories, right? They might cover multiple states, if you will, and they might only have a few locations and some mobile techs, but they can't effectively cover their whole territory, if you will. It's a pretty common occurrence in the industry. So what I've seen people be successful with is kind of if you're an independent repair shop, you work on trucks and you want to get into the fire side, maybe develop a relationship with a fire truck dealer that might be looking for some assistance to service their trucks in an area of their market they might not have, good coverage. I think that would be a pretty good way to get into it. You have anything to add to that, Kevin? Or?
I think that's right on. The one thing that we say frequently is that the sales guy, a really good sales guy, sells the first truck. The service department sells all the rest. It's not that the sales guy isn't important after the fact, but if you can't service what you sell, you're probably not going to get repeat sales. So it's important for a dealer, especially if they have a large territory, to have subs or representation in the area that they can have some influence over, help groom, help teach, so that they can make a claim to their entire territory. We represent the ability to service you after the sale, border to border.
One thing that when we were talking last night and just earlier, Kevin and Craig, the nature of the business, you're saving lives, right? You're working on equipment that's designed, if it fails, it could result in the death of somebody else, one of us, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, getting into this field and doing these repairs, you have various layers of QC checks and different things. So this isn't just a slam out a brake job real quick and leave. These are very specific, detailed procedures you're following and secondary QCs. Can you walk us through how that works and why that's important?
Yeah, so one of the first things you learn when you're working with emergency response vehicles is that you're in a field where you save lives and protect property. And what a wonderful group of customers. All customers, frankly, are really good people. But when you're working with firefighters, EMS people, and you see the passion, I'll never forget when I first got into the business of manufacturing fire trucks, we had firefighters in our factory said, never forget, we're the ones running into the building when everyone else is running out. And so you really form this mental connection that we can't get this wrong. And so as we're servicing these fire trucks and these EMS vehicles, we want a check and balance system. This was very important to Craig, that somehow we build into our workflow a check and balance system that allows a peer review. So we all know that we're grooming and cultivating lower level techs. Well, that can present a certain measure of risk to that equation. So we look at a workflow where a higher level, let's say an A tech goes out, maybe they perform the diagnostic, get authorization, order the parts, and then we hand that work off to a lower level tech who, working under the guidance of that A tech, is performing the work. There may be stop and hold points during the process so that before work gets covered up, there's an opportunity for that lead tech to come in and inspect and say, I really like what you did. There's an opportunity for that lead tech who did the diagnostic to share, hey, let me teach you how I found this. Let me show you the diagnostic steps that we employed to arrive at a correct conclusion. If you had to do this next time, this is what you would do. By the way, here's some best practices to effect repair. But by the time we're done, it is incumbent upon that peer, that lead tech, to circle back around and make certain, did we resolve the customer complaint? And then the second most important issue, is there any consequential damage? Because so much of what you have to do working on a fire truck or an ambulance, and frankly, big vocational trucks that have lots of add-on equipment, there's a large amount of disassembly. You got to take stuff off to get access to the thing you're repairing. Did we put it back right? So before and after photos, a chronology, a breadcrumb trail that shows you what's my disassembly look like, what does my reassembly look like. But then having that peer come back around and say, okay, we got it right. We corrected the complaint. We didn't create any consequential damage in the process.
And, sorry, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I was just going to add something else that we've started doing from a quality perspective is we want to use it as a learning experience. So we started bringing those quality finds up at our morning meeting with the techs so that we can learn from it, right? If we find a quality issue, we want to bring it up. We want to share it with all the techs. We want to learn from it so we don't repeat it again. So we started doing that, and it's really, I think, proving real positive for us. We also started doing what we're calling quality alerts. So when we have a quality issue we find, take a picture of it. We have a tech documented on a sheet, call it a code yellow, if you will, post it up after the meeting. again, learn from it, and then put it in a book. So when we hire new techs, have them review that book. Here's some of the quality things we found in the past, again, from a learning perspective.
So, some people might be saying, well, this is so good we can't afford it. But you've come up with a way that the customer supports this effort, and it's billable time?
Correct.
And walk us through how that works, because I know as a manufacturer, you supported it, and then it's carried forward. This is baked into the process, right? This is part of the cost.
Yes.
So virtually any customer you speak to, whether it's a vocational truck or emergency response vehicle, what they want is uptime reliability. They don't want any comebacks. They just want to get that vehicle back in service so it can generate revenue. Okay, well, one of the process steps is validation. So if we're thoughtful in how we apply our QC step and time efficient with that, then it's a second tech clocking on to the action item, adding time for that peer review. And I don't know of a single customer that has protested a second QC check, a second peer review on an action item to make certain they achieve uptime reliability. It's almost expected.
When you think about that customer covering that cost, let's talk about labor rates. We get questions all the time around how does the guest think about labor rates? What do they look like today versus a few years ago? Have you changed them? How frequently do you examine them, and just your overall thoughts on labor rates?
Yeah, I mean, I think labor rates is first. It's all about understanding cost, right? So you really got to understand your cost. And I think when you look back on the business and the industry the last couple of years with all the inflation that's gone on, I mean, I think you got to really be, and we're analyzing it almost on a quarterly basis now, where we used to do it on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
I think waiting a year is too long. Got to really look at it and make sure we're right there and keeping up with inflation, keeping up with the dramatic increase in cost. But I think when you think about labor rates, you also got to think about what your effective labor rate is, right? So, and that's really important. Something that we're really studying pretty thoroughly. I mean, we have a door rate of $175 an hour. And it would be great if we can get that all the time, every time, right? But we have discounts that we apply to warranty work and to in-house, to our sales department. They don't want to pay $175 an hour when we work for them. So our real effective labor rate's closer to $160 an hour. But we're going to get our effective rate and our door rate pretty on par. And it's going to take some work, but I think we're going to be able to get there. And I think that's a real important thing to think about is what your effective rate is. And I think a lot of shops probably miss that point.
One of the other things that Hendrickson does is competitive benchmarking. So on a recurring basis, we go out into the market and understand what are like in kind or similar service providers charging. And so we don't want to be the highest price guy, but it's okay to knock on the ceiling of what the market will bear periodically just to figure out where that ceiling's at.
Yeah.
And then back off to a level that leaves you competitive in the marketplace. But competitive benchmarking is very core to establishing that labor rate.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's just talk a little bit more about that. My assumption is you don't call your competitor and say, hey, this is Kevin from Hendrickson. What are you charging for labor these days? Mm-hmm. What do you actually do to get that info, or you're secret shopping your competitor, really? I think people will want to know, wow, that's a great idea. How can I actually execute that?
A lot of times it's just having a good discussion with, a lot of our customers use us exclusively, but some don't. Some use us, and they use, they might use another dealer that's specific to the truck that they have. Not all fire departments have all the same brand fire trucks, so they might have one of our trucks. They could have one of our competitors' trucks. So a lot of times our customers are sharing that with us, and they'll even, share bills that they've received from some of our competitors. We have a real understanding of that.
How do you, for tech wages, I imagine it goes hand in hand, right? Understanding your costs. Are your tech costs going up? Do you have to pay more, and how much more? What's the going rate per hour for a tech these days in 2023 going into 24?
Yeah, I mean, it's, that's rapidly increasing, right? So that's why to your point, we got to move the labor rate up, because we got to be able to pay our techs more and let them be able to keep up with inflation, because it's not easy for the business and it's not easy for the tech, right? I mean, everyone's costs are going up, so we're definitely moving wages up in a pretty rapid way.
Is there an entry level? Because you're in New York, I imagine cost of living, you're not getting a tech for less than this mark, and you still got to train them up. Is it in the 25 or 30 range? Or?
Yeah, it's in the mid 20s as a starting
Okay.
point, and in the mid 40s is kind of where we're
Yep.
at on the
That's
higher end of it. But we're trying to come up with ways that we can incentivize even above that, not just on the rate, through different bonus plans and other ideas we have.
And complementary to that, we're very keen on data mining. So when we go back and look at our data and analyze the type of complaints that our various level of techs are addressing, what we actually find is the greatest amount of revenue is generated by B and C techs. So the more you can fill your shop with routine basic repairs, PM work, with lower cost B and C techs, you have to have A techs on staff because you have to be able to address all complaints. But if the majority of your work is in that B and C area, and it is, for us, it is, the data tells us that, and its greatest profitability, then you don't always have to be out searching for the best guy out there. What you need to be searching for is the trainable guy out there.
Yeah. One last follow-up on rates in general. As you have to go have that conversation with your customers, more than once a year at times around labor rates changing. Any advice or anything you've learned from successfully having those conversations with customers, letting them know that the cost is going up?
I think, we tell them, look at what your local car dealer is charging. Look at, and if you go into a car dealer in our market today, it's almost $200 an hour, right? And here we are working on complex equipment, a little more complexity than an average car today, and we're lower. So I think they understand that, and they are on board with it.
All right. A couple of other questions specifically related to fire, and then we can talk a little bit more about some other aspects of the business. Interestingly, we got a couple of questions about insurance, which I didn't expect. Any comment from you on just the insurance landscape in general, things people should look out for, best places to shop carriers?
Sure. So insurance. So something I think everyone should be mindful of is that the cost of this equipment is really going up in a pretty dramatic way in a very short period of time, right? A couple of years ago, we used to sell pumper trucks at our dealership for $600,000 to $800,000. A couple of years later, here we are today, we're selling trucks for 1.2, 1.3 for a pumper. Pretty big increase in a pretty short amount of time. And I think from an insurance perspective, you got to really be mindful that your coverage is keeping up with that value of the equipment rising so rapidly, so quickly. You don't want to be underinsured, you don't want to be overinsured, so you really got to look at that and make sure that you have the right amount of insurance for the value of this equipment in today's dollars.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about that, but the inflation, to your point, is aggressive. You would have to update your coverage significantly.
Yes.
One comment before, when we were talking about rates in the market, I noticed just in some conversations, the fire community is very transparent. Like, you'll go to shows. Well, I told you I was over at Sentinel, and you're like, oh, I know Brian. Like, everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. Do you also collaborate with other folks in different regions, like share repairs, share work, and build out networks of friendships and stuff?
Definitely.
We do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we found most effective is whatever issue we're dealing with, another dealer or technician has probably gone through it. We want to know what they know. So our attitude is the more we share, the more they're likely to share in return, and they do. The territories in fire apparatus and emergency response vehicle sales is restricted to that dealer. So they can't compete in our territory, nor can we in theirs. So it's okay to go ahead and share some best practices, and it doesn't really create a problem.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, moving on to a couple other questions that we have gotten. we looked at that picture of the shop, and one thing, if anybody noticed, I did, you had 6 or 4, what looked like 60 or 70-inch TV screens put up there. And a question around electronic display boards to show text, different pieces of information. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you display there, how you track KPIs, and some meeting cadences that you have with your employees?
Sure, yeah. So we start every morning with the toolbox meeting with all our techs around those boards. We talk about, what are the priorities for the day, what trucks have to leave, what is everyone working on, making sure everyone's schedule is set for the day, and if there's a gap in the schedule at that point, we want to know about it so we can get that corrected before the day starts. At that meeting, we also talk about, like I mentioned earlier, any quality things that we want to bring up that we might have found from the day before. And then we also talk about safety at every meeting. So any safety concerns any of the techs have, any near misses from the day before, things that could have resulted in a lost time incident we want to talk about. Pretty mindful, we want to really work to improve the safety of our operation, safety for our employees. So we definitely are trying to bring more of that to our morning meeting. So that's on the tech side. Then once a day, our management team, service director, parts director, or service writers, myself, Kevin, will meet in front of those boards, and we'll go through our daily operations meeting, try to let that be no longer than 30 minutes, and we go through every truck that's on property. Where are we at with it, quick status update, what are any roadblocks preventing us from getting that truck complete? It's also a way to collaborate, right? So a service director might say, oh, shoot, I'm running into this problem. And, one of us might be able to jump in and say, you know what, why don't you call Metro Fire down in Texas and ask them if, they have experienced this before, things like that. So we meet once a day around that, around the board, and go over all the trucks that are on property.
And the KPIs that are on there you're showing units that are on property. You're showing efficiency, et cetera. How much data are you displaying?
So when you think of those 4 monitors, in the upper right monitor, there's going to be a technician job assignment board. Think of them as little Monopoly cards, to where a tech can find their card, if you will, up on that top right monitor. It'll show every job in the order in which we want them to attack their book of work for that particular day. So one of the things we learned early on is the worst thing that can happen is a tech standing around waiting for a service advisor to feed them information. We want to push information out to our technicians so they are loaded and ready to go that next day. So the night prior, that whole schedule was set up and prioritized for the technician. In the bottom right panel, there's going to be what we refer to as our truck on property report, and that gives us literally, think of it as you're walking through the airport, you look up at the status board of the flight. You should be able to, while you're walking, catch the status and keep walking, and in a matter of seconds, form an opinion. Am I healthy? Are we okay? Are we on time? Is there anything I need to be worried about? We use the and-on system, so green, yellow, red. If I'm setting green, forget about it. If I'm setting yellow, okay, I better do something before it becomes a problem. Anything setting red, stop what you're doing, get involved, make that red go away. Over on another panel, we very much enjoy the full bay tech view. So we literally have all the jobs that are in play. We see the technicians, what they're assigned on at any point in time. Everybody walking by those screens zooms right in on anything that has gone red. So if our actual hours have exceeded our expected or our invoice hours, and if we even begin to see it approach, first thing we're looking at is, okay, this is telling you you're 80% complete on that job because you're about to consume 80% of expected hours, but you only look 50% done to me. Looks like you might have a problem. Let's talk about it before it gets out of hand. Very important. We're watching that full bay tech view, anything that's hinting at red. And then the upper left-hand pane is our communication tool with our customers. So, when we talk about high labor rate, frankly, the high price to our customer for the service that we provide, be it a commercial over-the-road flatbed truck or emergency response vehicle, no customer wants to be surprised. And many of our customers have authorization levels that they can only sign off or approve a certain amount. So if we're going to be guilty of something with our customer, we want to be guilty of over-communication. Our customers actually part and parcel. They participate in monitoring our repairs. We're giving them constant updates. They're giving us feedback. We want no surprises throughout the entire process. That way, by the time the invoice comes their way, they already know what it took to get there and why it is as much as it is.
All right. I'm going to show this picture one more time just because a couple people, I think, joined a little bit after we took it off. So bear with me just one second.
That goes up too. Let's talk through those blue bins. We were that caught our eye earlier. Obviously, a polished concrete floor there that is there. What's going on with the blue bins?
Yeah, so when you think of tech efficiency, right, there's no silver bullet, right? It's a lot of little things that you can implement to really help improve efficiency. And one of the things we've done is, we noticed that techs used to waste a lot of time finding tools. Where's that? Where did someone put that tool? Who had the last, this diagnostic tool? Who had it last? Techs were walking around, they were looking for it, they were talking to other techs, who had it last? And the way we were able to fix that is we partnered with Fastenal. And Fastenal, if we moved all our hardware spend to them, which we did, they provided these locker system. And the way the locker system works is there's all these locations for the different diagnostic tools. Tech goes up to it, they punch in who they are, which bin they want to access. It opens it up.
And the repair order.
Yep. And then they have to return it. If they don't return it, you get an email. You know that tech didn't check it back in. So it's really allowed us to really not lose a lot of this expensive equipment, but more so save a lot of time. Save a lot of time on the tech's part of just going right to the bin. They know where it is. They check it out. They get it. They use the tool. They check it back in.
And you're tying it to service orders,
Yes.
directly to service orders, so you know where it could be if you didn't check it in.
Correct.
And we've done the same thing on a lot of the consumables we use in the business, brake clean and other shop supplies, right? Tech used to go up to the parts window, used to wait for the parts guy to get off the phone, ask for the can of brake clean. So now we have another, you don't have a picture of it there, but we have another cabinet that's all scaled. So the tech goes up to it, they punch the RO they're on, punch who they are, they open it up, they take out the can of brake clean, and it automatically puts it on the, to the RO. So again,
Like a vending machine.
like a vending
Right.
machine. So again, saving time, and that's helped us in a pretty big way.
That's great. So you mentioned diagnostic equipment, and we always get questions about this. You use OE tools, third-party tools, combination. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything that's a specific favorite?
No, as a Cummins dealer, we're using the Cummins Insight.
Yeah.
As a lot of what we do. But we've also, gone to some, like Ford as an example, right? So we've gotten some Ford software because we purchase a lot of Ford vehicles for our own fleet. So we're able to work with Ford as a fleet to be able to get a lot of that diagnostic tools.
Yeah.
Now that shop is pretty clean. I've been in some shops, I was just at Sentinel, they're super clean. I'm a big fan of cleaning shops, and we were talking about, like, how do you keep a shop clean? Some people are like, I could never do that. And there's a process. There's processes you can use. And
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how you maintain that and what it takes and what the benefits are.
Yeah, so we use a system called 5S. And if you've ever walked into a manufacturing facility, really high-end manufacturing facilities, like a lot of the fire truck builders that we work with the Rev Group, they're big believers in 5S. When you look at Harley Davidson, big believers in 5S. And all the auto companies, frankly, all use the 5S system. It's a process to keep the place organized, right? So 1S is sort, right? So you got to sort through everything that shouldn't be in the workplace. Why is it on the shop floor? Get rid of it. Either discard it or put it in storage. If it's something that you're not utilizing on a pretty regular basis, it's just clutter, it's just in the way, it shouldn't be on your shop floor. So it starts with the sort. Second is set, everything in a place for everything. So we have dedicated locations. Again, tying back to those bins, even a garbage pail, it should be in a set spot, should be marked out on the floor. Same thing with brooms and things like that, and other shop equipment. And the third S is shine, right? So we, make that part of our process. Sustain and standardize are the other two S's. How do you make that part of your daily work? And, we find ways to do that. So we've implemented that system. We've educated our techs. It's a journey. It's a lot of starts and stops, but overall, if you look at where we are today from where we were a few years ago, it's really helped us.
You know, one of the other things that Craig has done that I really like is communication. So we rely pretty heavily on text threads, internal. So we actually created, at Craig's request, a 5S text thread. All the techs are a party to it. So one of the big frustrations that you have when you try to achieve accountability with shop cleanliness is techs are frustrated about the behavior of other techs. And they don't ever see a day where that tech's going to be any better at housekeeping, therefore why should they? But one of the things that came out of the texting capability is any given tech, when they see an area that doesn't match the standard, oil pan was left out, dirty rags was left out, you know, something is unkept, they'll take a picture of it, post it on the 5S text thread. We all see it, all the techs see it, the leadership team sees it, but they have some fun with it. You know, it's not, you know, that guy isn't following instructions. It's comical, to be honest, but it's just enough of a nudge, you know, to make sure everybody doesn't make their name on that text thread. You know, I don't want to be the guy, I'm getting called out on this.
Right.
So they actually found a way to have fun with the whole thing, but there's still accountability to it, because if something's left out, everybody's going to hear about it.
Yeah.
So something we've changed just recently is we used to give the techs 10 minutes at the end of the day to 5S, go through it, put things away, clean their areas, things like that. So we just started recently saying, let's move that to the beginning of the day. Let's do that for the first 10 minutes. Let's 5S the areas. Let's get the place in good order. And what we found why we're doing that instead of the end of the day, at the end of the day, people want to go home, right? They want to go home. They're just, hurry up, let's put this away, let's get out of here. Beginning of the day, they set it, they get things right, they get in order, and then they work a little better to keep it that way throughout the day.
Throughout the day, yeah. And I imagine that you were saying that you've actually hired people to help keep the shop clean and do certain functions. It's attracted technicians. It's made the jobs more efficient. Like there's just less clutter. And so there's actually a benefit to it other than it just looking pristine and clean.
Yeah, so we've been a big believer for a long time. We've had utility workers, and that really use them just to clean the shop, keep the shop looking good. And it's really benefited us, like you said, attracting technicians. When we do a job interview with a tech, you know, we always end with walking through the shop, and we always get a wow. We always do. They say, you know, I want to work here. I want to work in an environment like this. It's also helped attract customers, right? Customers walk through our shop, and they're impressed as well. So there's definitely big benefits from that perspective. But then also, you know, we try to have that utility worker do things that techs don't have to do. Moving trucks around, things like that, you know.
Setting up floor jacks.
Setting up floor jacks. Let the techs really be efficient. Let them work on what they do best, is repairing vehicles. And let's, you know, push other things to this utility worker that can help them and support them to help them be more efficient.
And that's maybe a career path. The utility worker could emerge into a mechanic long term through training, et cetera.
Yep.
Could, but you can also identify a retired gentleman that just doesn't want to sit at home all day, and that's a great utility worker that can come in, help maintain the shop, move trucks, take on a porter type role, run the floor sweeper. They're low cost. They're a pleasure to be around, and they don't aspire to do anything more than just be part of a team.
So we mentioned attracting talent. A follow-up question that we got live around hiring was, where do you find people? I mean, are we looking at Indeed and job boards, or any specific places that you try to source from to get talent?
Yeah, we definitely are on Indeed. We're finding that to be less and less effective over time. Where we've been successful as of late is networking through our current employee base, right? So we offer a referral program. So if we can hire a tech, no techs, right? So our techs, they've worked with other techs over the years. They know who the good guys are. So we have a pretty strong referral program where we will pay our current employees to refer other employees to come work for us. And we're just constantly networking, constantly talking to people, and it's what we've currently been doing.
And the other aspect of that is the younger techs, the younger generation that's coming into this field, they might look into what used to be an old diesel repair shop that frankly looked a little bit like a dungeon. Poor lit, greasy, grimy, a mess. And these younger technicians, none of them ever created a vision to say, that's where I want to be. In their mind's eye, they see a cleaner environment, a more elite type work environment. So we really work hard to create the kind of clean, organized, well-lit environment where frankly, we're recognizing the skill for what it is. Because if you're working on an emergency response vehicle or an over-the-road heavy-duty truck, this is a big deal. Your first tool is a laptop. This is this is the equivalent of being a medical doctor for fire trucks. And the working environment ought to be commensurate with that expectation and that skill. So if we can get techs to walk through, frankly, it could be the uniform guy that's coming through, and he takes a look around. And then there's his word of mouth. Could be the Fastenal guy that's coming through. There's a lot of traffic in and out of a shop on any given day, and sometimes you'll have prospective technicians reach out to you. It's like, how'd you hear about us? And it's going to be word of mouth, but
Right.
it's through channels you don't even expect.
Yeah. And it just seems like, I see that picture, and it just seems like when you're working in that environment, everyone who works there feels a sense of pride, a sense of I need to do a good job because look where I am. And I don't want to have to leave here and go back to the shop that was
That's right.
dark and difficult to work in. So I think that's an amazing thing that you've done. Trying to go through some more of the live questions. So this is going to go back to some of those secondary QC checks. We have a mentor technician who's going to spend a little bit of time on a lot of jobs. Do you pay them differently? Do they have any incentive comp? And how does that play into the fact they're kind of bouncing from job to job?
Yeah, so what we do is we allow them to go in and give themselves a certain percentage of the job, right? So they get a certain percentage of the time on the job, and we're kind of experimenting right now with a bonus plan from an efficiency perspective. And we don't have it figured out yet, but we're kind of in development on it. We've launched a beta, if you will, with 3 techs. So we're learning the good and the bad that comes with it. And one of those techs is the QC tech. So we're learning the pitfalls of the program with the QC tech. So we're kind of right in the middle of trying to figure that out.
So one of the nice things that Full Bay did that we really appreciate is make it very easy for a second tech, in this case it could be a peer review where we're trying to complete a QC, to be able to jump on an SOAI, SO action item, contribute in whatever way they're going to contribute, put in their own time, adjust that time for what it needs to be, and then back out. Whereas before that took a lot of manipulation, and sometimes we would catch that time and we'd end up eating it. Now it's very easy for a peer to be able to jump in, perform that QC, help, and frankly collaborate. A lot of the repairs that we're dealing with, especially on older over-the-road trucks, it takes a collaboration of technicians that have mixed experience. So there could be 3 or 4 techs sometimes clocking onto an AI just to resolve a given issue. And Full Bay, frankly, has made that very easy now. Insofar as, one of the things that we did, I'm very proud of Craig for this, is that we pay 2 bonuses. So one is a utilization bonus. So if a technician is utilized 93% of the time, okay, why 93 and not 100? Because we do set time aside for toolbox meetings. We do set some time aside for housekeeping and cleanup of the shop. It's not billable. We don't pass that part on to the customer. But we do want all technicians fully utilized 93% of the time, and that's a big deal. Our techs, it's a big deal to our techs because they earn an additional $1 per hour on last week's. Whatever their clocked hours were last week, that bumps up by $1 an hour if they're 93% utilized.
And we launched that program because what we were finding was we didn't have the clocking discipline our techs didn't have.
Yeah.
They didn't have that discipline. We would find techs working on a truck and they weren't clocked on it. And we tried to get through to them. You're working for free right now. You know what I mean?
This isn't good.
So we put a little bit skin in the game for them and said, clock the right way, clock on and off jobs. And we'll, if you do that for 93% of the time for the prior week, we'll give you $1 an hour more. And that's pretty much overnight fixed that problem. I mean, our techs are very clued into their utilization. And most weeks, all of our techs, receive it. I mean, that was a real game changer for us.
So then the second bonus that we're in beta test of right now is an efficiency bonus. So our goal with regard to efficiency And frankly, Full Bay was very helpful with this. If you go back into Full Bay history and look at a number of the videos, you guys were actually a guiding light on what some of our targets should be. And we did go out and competitively benchmark those, and you guys were right on. But in a shop like ours, we should be setting north of 125% efficiency. So somewhere between 125 and 145, and we were hovering right around 95 to 105% efficiency. So we were well off that goal. Well, when you start trying to nudge and encourage technicians to work smarter, not harder, it almost goes against the grain of most men, because most men just want to keep working, and trying to make the problem improve, not realizing they just ran those hours up. So at the earliest logical moment, we want a technician to be able to say, you know what, I've gone as far as I should go on this. I'm going to go get a second opinion. I'm going to go get a service advisor's input. It's okay to do that. Not only is it okay, we'll reward you for doing that. It's monetarily worthwhile for you not to keep running up those hours. Ask for help early and often, and so we can keep our efficiency at an optimum level.
Interesting. That's very cool. Now, is that per hour rate or a lump sum bonus that you're experimenting?
So it is a product of literally looking at actual hours compared to invoiced hours. So at the end of every week, we run a report, we do a look back and say, and it's at the action item level, tech and action item level. We do a look back to say, what's your total sum of your actual hours compared to your invoiced hours, and where does that land on efficiency?
And then you'll add additional compensation.
Correct.
Varied comp. Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, we're paying, right now, we set an early goal at 110% efficiency. So crawl, walk, run.
Yeah.
So our initial hurdle is 110%. So for all hours that are above 110%, we give back 5% on whatever that monetized amount is.
Oh, wow. So that's meaningful. Yeah. Yeah. That'd motivate.
Yeah,
There's a
really.
recipe, folks, right here.
Yeah.
That transfers over outside of fire. I mean, that's pretty solid stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how many people on the phone are going to go back and implement this, trying to get up to 93% and get that extra $1 an hour on last week's pay, because I think that most people would be envious of 93% and think, how can I get to 93? And if it's going to cost me $1 an hour for everybody the previous week, I'd do that in a minute.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I would encourage one of the most impactful videos you guys have on Full Bay. I believe is entitled "How to Improve Profitability for the Business," and you guys even have an Excel spreadsheet where you model out, if I can pull all these levers, which ones generate the greatest income. And we actually replicated that template and started playing with it. And one of the levers you actually call attention to in your video is watch what happens when you improve efficiency. What the bottom line impact is, and it is substantial. Utilization is very important. It's the first step. No point in even thinking about efficiency if you don't nail utilization. But once you get utilization under your belt, get to that 93% mark, okay, now start playing, just play with a financial model of what if. If I improve my efficiency 5%, what's the bottom line impact? And it's substantial. In fact, in your video, you actually point out there's really nothing else you can do in the business that will move the needle more than improving efficiency.
Yeah.
Well, a couple other live questions. We think about retaining techs, not just hiring, and what benefits we're going to offer. Do you guys offer health insurance?
Yep.
Is that pretty common in the region?
Yep. We offer health insurance. We contribute a pretty significant portion to the tech from the health insurance perspective, but we're also starting to think of other benefits. Right? You gotta look at the wellness as a whole, if you will, and something that we're launching in 24 is a financial planning and coaching to our techs, right? So when you look at our techs, and really, quite frankly, society in general, there's so many people with credit card debt, right? There's so many people that rack up debt. They haven't been taught the personal financial planning in schools, if you will. So we're going to bring that to our business. We're hiring a company that's going to come in and going to work with our employees to allow them to better financial plan for their future, allow them to utilize certain tools and practices to pay off their debts, and allow them to save. So that's something that we're really excited about in the coming year.
Yeah, that's a great one. I mean, I totally agree with you. I have kids in school now, and I'm wondering, they got to teach you how to manage this allowance because your chores, the money's going right out the door. But All right. The question about mobile. So you said you do have some mobile units. How new of a tech would you put in a mobile unit? What's the threshold for?
That's the challenge, right? So
Yeah.
our mobile techs are some of our best techs because they're in front of customers. They don't get that chance to collaborate like Kevin was talking about with other techs in the shop. So our techs today, our best techs are in the mobile, in the trucks.
Interesting.
Imagine they're compensated a little bit different for being mobile. And then it sounds like you also used the tactic to open up a market. You sent mobile out into a market, and then you're building the facility versus rushing out and building the facility before the business is there.
Exactly. We acquired a lot of customers through the mobile, and now we're at a point where we need the facility. So we're not bringing those customers from the northern part of our territory back down to Long Island. So we're going to be more in that market.
And the other real benefit of the mobile service provider is part lead time is really a big issue for almost everyone. And so if you can have a highly qualified mobile tech go out and perform the diag, get the parts on order, then signal the truck in. Once the parts become available, then the truck down elapsed time is considerably less, assuming that the problem hasn't already downed the truck at a customer's location. If they can still limp along while we're waiting for parts to come in, sending a mobile service tech out to get that diag out of the way is a big help to them and to us.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to run out of time here shortly, but Kevin, I might have missed it. You said there were 3 bonus programs, and I feel like I got the 2. Was there a third one? Was it
2.
around safety? Oh, there's 2. Question around, do you have a safety bonus program or anything that you do to incentivize safety in the shop?
So we have a safety bonus plan for our lead tech today, right? So our lead tech, we want him to bring that up morning meeting, and we want him to fill out a safety calendar on our board. And if we go for a month without any lost time incidents, no techs have to go home, go to a doctor, not come to work because they got hurt at work, he gets a small safety bonus. But that's another experiment that we're doing and seeing do we launch that amongst the whole company.
All right. That's a great one. All right. I am going to save this one question to ask you guys after this, and we'll record an answer. But there's a highly technical question about pumping water, and I'm not going to embarrass myself and try to translate that one. Mr. Reynolds here. Can you tell us briefly the evolution of the business as far as other commercial work and fire? Was it all fire and then you got into some other commercial work? Or
Yes, I'll tell you how it kind of came to be. It's kind of a crazy story. So back years ago, when my dad was running the business, one of the larger customers that we had was a U-Haul, right? Mm-hmm. So we get a service call for U-Haul. We send a mobile tech out, and the gentleman who rented this U-Haul was really impressed. He was impressed by our tech. He was impressed by the organization and the cleanliness of our service truck, and he happened to be a sales manager at a fire truck company. And that's just how it started, right? And he said, wound up calling us, and he was really impressed and said, "How would you like to service fire trucks? I'll help you get into the business." So it's kind of a weird thing, right? How that started, but
Yeah, but you do good work, and
he was really impressed by the service experience and wanted to bring that to his fire truck company.
For Craig, you're not going to know better than me, but for a number of years, if you think about the ratio of commercial service repair versus emergency response, Hendrickson's been pretty dependent upon the commercial side of the business for quite a while.
Yep. Yeah. So we've been doing commercial service for a long time. Last couple of years, we've dialed back the commercial and increased the fire side. But yeah, it's still an important part of the business.
And one of the benefits that a shop like Hendrickson brings to the table for commercial over the road, could be 2 men in a truck, it could be every vocation imaginable, is once that truck is out of its warranty period and that truck owner is no longer required to go back to the place where they bought it from, then after that, it's a matter of who can get this back up and running the fastest. Mm-hmm. Most OEM dealers right now have incredible backlogs of work. And so if you've got a work truck that is broke down, it could sit there for weeks. A lot of these shops like Hendrickson, you can get in and out in half the time, sometimes less. So that commercial site component of the business can be a great cash flow generator, while you're working with the emergency response vehicles.
We also see on the fire side, all these fire trucks are very different, and we wait on parts a lot of times. I mean, you can't stock every part for a fire truck. I mean, we try, but it's impossible, right?
Exactly.
There's just too many different parts, too many different companies. So a lot of times we could be waiting on parts on a number of fire trucks, and the commercials, feeding the business.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like we could sit here and go on for a little bit longer. So we're going to try something different this time to keep us on time. We have a handful of questions. The one specifically about a tanker and how many gallons per minute it's going to pump, we're going to get to. But we're going to end the webinar sort of on normal time, and then we'll stick around for 5 minutes and we'll record a couple of answers that we'll send out as part of the bonus webinar footage. So I think I have one more thing to share here. One last look at the shop. But we want to thank everybody. Thank you so much for our guests from Hendrickson to come all the way from New York and from Michigan to visit with us.
Pleasure.
Very, very glad to have you guys. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you're a Full Bay customer, we certainly appreciate it. If you're not a Full Bay customer, we would certainly love to show you what we have, help you run a more profitable, more efficient business. If you're interested in seeing a demo, we would be happy to give that to you. I'll leave that poll on here for just a second, but please reach out. No doubt we'll reach out to you if you're not a customer and you're on the webinar. Go through one more. The other piece, Dieselmatic, that we always plug as well. Great part of the Full Bay team focused on helping to drive more business for your shop through digital marketing solutions. So again, if you're interested in anything there as you look to either expand into new services or new markets or just grow your business in general, we'd love to show you how we can help you out on that front. And with that, we'll finish. Give one final plug for Diesel Connect. You remember when it is? It's in May.
Oh,
I know that.
24 Diesel Connect? Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a time. I think registration has already been about half full. So we just recently launched, and I believe marketing was saying that the bookings are half full. So if you're interested in going to Diesel Connect, definitely get in. It was a great time. A bunch of amazing people from the industry collaborating, a ton of connections that were made. And so definitely look out for the Diesel Connect emails and get signed up to go.
Yep, and last year we did it here in our office, and we had some limited space, so we ended up with a pretty good wait list that couldn't get in this year. For next year, we've expanded it dramatically, so we'll hopefully not end up with people that can't get in, but please register for Diesel Connect if you can join us here in Phoenix in May. And with that, we'll end. Thank you all very much for joining us.